So in this video, I'm going to give you the exact cold email template and strategy that not only booked us a meeting with a home improvement company doing over $20 million in annual recurring revenue, but also booked multiple meetings with 7 and 8 figure companies, as well as was responsible for closing multiple deals, one of them being priced at $4,000 per month, okay? And this campaign was also played a massive role in scaling one of our clients' Canon from $2,000 per month to over $13,000 per month in exactly 98 days, okay? So don't worry, I'm gonna give you the exact template, and I hate that word, but I am gonna literally show you the exact cold email that we used to close this massive deal. But you can't just take the template and plug it in. There's a couple steps in this process. So please make sure that you watch the video all the way through, that so you can ideally get similar results, okay? So as you can see right here, screenshot of when he booked the meeting with the company doing over $20 million in annual revenue. You can see right here, closed a $4K per month deal with a company doing $5.6 million in annual revenue using the exact strategy I'm about to show you, okay? So first, I kind of want to tell the story behind the system. I think it's going to help you understand the why a lot better so that, not only can you take the strategy and use it in your own business, but you can also start making decisions and launching strategies like this on your own, okay? So when we onboarded Canon into our agency, something really stood out to me, okay? And he was explaining that one of his current clients in the home improvement niche, he only communicated with the marketing director. And this was one of his clients, okay? So when he took the sales call, it was with the marketing director. When he paid the invoice, it was the marketing director. When he took the onboarding call, it was the marketing director. When he communicates in the Slack channel, marketing director, so on and so forth. Meaning he only communicated with that company through the marketing director, and he never actually met the owner or the founder or the CEO of that home improvement company. And the reason why this is interesting is because I know when a lot of people in this niche scrape leads, they're trying to reach, the owner of the company, okay? So when we discovered this, the very first campaign that we launched for Canon, I wanted to experiment with something. And this experiment would be only reaching out to marketing decision makers of these home improvement companies. So when we were putting together his ICP, which stands for Ideal Client Profile, this is something that we do before we build a lead list for ourselves, for our customers, and you should do it too. And it's essentially where, you build a list of maybe 5 to 10 companies, and these companies can either be, your clients who are getting the best results with you if you have more than a handful. They can also be you doing research and basically putting together a list of clients who, in your opinion, would be ideal for your service. And then you take this list of 5 to 10 companies and you basically write down their attributes, their characteristics, their criteria. And, what these characteristics and criteria looks like is, things like employee count, annual revenue, the technologies that they use, the industry that they're in, how many employees they have, right? The keywords that can be used to search them up, etc., right? And then you use these as filters when you're building your lead list. And I also forgot to mention, but a very big important part of that criteria is who are the decision makers in these companies who are going to be, most likely you're in to getting on the phone with that company. But most importantly, you want to be talking to someone who can ultimately make a buying decision or has a massive influence over it, okay? So, when we launched this cold email campaign, instead of directly targeting the owners of these home improvement companies or just anyone in these home improvement companies like most agency owners in this niche are doing, we specifically targeted the marketing department decision makers of these companies. And as you can see, the results are absolutely incredible. And yes, I'm going to show you the exact cold email we used to accomplish this. I'm literally going to show you the exact cold email that was responsible for the $4,000 per month deal. But there's a few things you need to do first, okay? So don't be the person who skips through bits and pieces of the video. It's not going to work for you if you do that. So I'd really recommend sitting back, relaxing, and getting ready to take notes, because I promise you, if you follow this video and you implement exactly what I'm about to show you, it's going to be highly likely that you close these larger deals yourself. So the first step is we want to build our lead list, okay? And we have to do this the right way in order for the cold email to even be seen by the right people. So as I mentioned earlier, instead of targeting the founders directly, we want to put together a lead list of contacts in the marketing department of the company. And the first step is to figure out the exact job titles for this role in order for us to get as many leads as possible. And the easiest way to accomplish this is by leveraging ChatGPT. And this is exactly what I did when we built the lead list for the main campaign. And the prompt that I used was, what are all the job titles of marketing related decision makers at a niche company? So, what this looks like in action is, what are all the job titles of marketing related decision makers at a home improvement company? Okay. And if you're in the gym niche, you can say this strategy also works really well in that niche. You can say, what are all the job titles of marketing related decision makers inside of a gym, inside of a med spa, inside of a SaaS company, etc. Okay. And then it's going to spit back within seconds, like 20 to 30 different job titles. And the reason we want to leverage ChatGPT instead of doing this ourselves is because there's going to be very specific job titles that you might not think of. So for example, and the reason it's so important for you to gather all of these job titles when you're building the lead list is because the job title of the decision maker who got us on Zoom with the company doing $20 million was a brand manager, okay? And I don't know about you, but I would not have thought of using that job title intuitively without ChatGPT's help, okay? So what you want to do is execute this prompt and basically copy all of these job titles. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to head over to apollo.io. If you've been watching some of my content, you should be familiar with this platform. If you're not, it's one of the very big lead vendors in the marketplace. They're not perfect, but they've been around the longest and they have the most investors. They have access to the most capital. And because of this, they have pretty much more data than any of the lead vending competitions on the market. So that's who I would recommend using, especially for what we're about to do. If you want an alternative, ListKit is, up and coming on the market right now by the guys over at Client Ascension. It looks extremely promising, but for the sake of this video, we're going to go ahead and demo this with Apollo because that's the actual platform that I use when we executed this strategy for Canon, okay? So you're going to want to head over to Apollo, go to the people search, and all the job titles that you've got from ChatGPT, you're going to go to the job titles filter inside of Apollo, and you're going to enter them all, okay? And even if you think some of them are similar to each other, just trust me, just enter them all, okay? And, the three other filters that we need to build our list are going to be industry, location, and keywords, okay? And in order to build an accurate list, I would recommend kind of doing what I talked about earlier and taking a list of, companies who would be ideal for your service and seeing what industry they're in and what keywords they can be found under. Okay, so I'll actually show you how to do this, but first what we want to do is add the location. So for this situation, this example, I added the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada, okay? And this is basically going to give me the, marketing decision makers for home improvement companies at these locations, okay? And these are I would recommend probably just doing these 3 locations too for 99% of people. Maybe you have a very specific location that you work. Maybe you're in a, totally different market. But for most of you, you would probably just be targeting United States, Canada, United Kingdom, or one of the 3, okay? So that's what we'll put for location. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to the search tab, and instead of going to people, we're going to go to companies. And right here where it says company, we're going to go to the search, and as you can see, it's giving me examples of companies that I can pick. And what you're going to do is you're going to list out maybe 3 to 5 of your quote unquote ideal companies, okay? You don't have to be working with them, but if you do have a lot of clients, I would recommend taking the ones who are getting the best results with you, typing their company in here. And if you don't have that many clients, that's totally fine. You can just do a little bit of research and, really just pick a couple companies that you would be like, hey, if I could work with this company, that would be completely ideal, okay? They would probably get the best results with my service given what I can see, okay? And then what you're going to want to do is, search those companies up and click on them like this once you found them. So for the purpose of this video, I've added 2 of them right here. So these are both remodeling companies, and you can notice right away, both of them are in the construction industry, okay? So we know that when we're building this lead list, we're going to use the construction industry, right? But if you're targeting gym owners, if you're targeting a SaaS company, if you're targeting med spas, etc., the industry is going to be different, okay? So it's very important that you do this with your ideal companies, okay? Unless, of course, you're in the home improvement niche, then you're probably going to end up using construction, okay? And it's good to do at least 5 companies. I only have 2 here. And the reason we want to do 5 is because sometimes sometimes there might be 2 or maybe even 3 industries that can be used to identify these ideal prospects, okay? But for this example, the industry is construction. Now remember, the other piece of information we need is keywords, okay? So we're actually going to click on the profile of each company, and you can see right here we have the company keywords, right? So general construction, landscaping, design planning, home services, patio covers, kitchens, bathrooms, right? These are all keywords that we can use to find leads similar to this company. And to be honest with you, keywords are so important when you're building lead lists in Apollo. And I see a lot of people, they use Apollo and they just never even use the keywords filter, okay? And keywords are what's really going to help you, build a bigger and more accurate lead list. So I would really recommend, practicing this where you go to a company profile who's your quote unquote ideal client, look at the keywords that they can be found under and write them down somewhere inside of a Google Sheet, a Google document, so you can use it when you're building your lead list, okay? So what you would do is you would look at the company's profiles on your list, and you would want to write down all the keywords and all the industries that they have, so the second company can be found under whole house renovations, kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, and basement finishing, okay? So we'll go back to our people search, and now that we have job titles, and as you can see, I've already entered all these filters before this video, just for the sake of time. So you can see we have job titles filled out, we have location filled out, we have industry and keywords filled out, and then so we have the industry on construction, and then I filled out some of the keywords, and then the last thing you want to do is go to email status and select verified, okay? And essentially what this does is this doesn't mean the email is verified. We're still going to need to clean it, which I'll show you how to do in a moment, but you always want to put on the verified email, because if you don't, there's going to be leads in here who don't even have an email available. And unless you're using another software to, try to find their email, you don't really need to export them, okay? So turn on the verified email, and as you can see, we have, a little bit over 2,000 leads available to us. And, these are all people in the marketing department who have the ability to make a buying decision for these home improvement companies, right? So you can see right here, we can click on the website of this company, Bathroom Busters. Look right here, get the bathroom of your dreams. Looks like a really nice company. And you can see right here, we have the email of the head of marketing, okay? And that's going to be our in to the company. And you might be thinking, well, 2,000 leads, that's not that much. And honestly, if you have a really good cold email and a really high quality targeted lead list like this, you really don't need that many leads to, close a lot of deals. So for example, I'll actually show you the campaign that, that closed all these deals, booked the meeting with a $20 million company. And you can see we literally only contacted 600 people. And just to show you that this is legit, I'll actually go ahead and refresh the Instantly page, okay? Do not trust anyone's Instantly screenshots unless they can go into Instantly, in screen recording, pull it up and refresh the page, because I've seen a lot of people either steal, I've literally seen people steal my own screenshots, but also it's very easy to right click, do inspect element, and change these numbers how you please, okay? So unless the person can open up Instantly, refresh the page, just figure, just be careful, okay? Because when you refresh it, it gets rid of any edits that you make with inspect element, okay? I don't want to go off topic, but that's a small thing, and it bugs me when people fake their results, so I just want to show that. And as you can see, we literally only messaged 618 people. We had a 90% open rate because we practice, best deliverability practices. So 549 people saw the email. We got 93 responses, so 15% reply rate, and we generated 10 leads, being worth over $50,000 in pipeline value. And, 10 leads from 600 contacts is pretty good. We booked multiple meetings, some of them with, 7 and 8 figure companies, and we closed over $6,000 in monthly revenue worth of deals, okay, from just 600 people. So my point is, you really don't even need that many leads, okay? And we were only targeting people inside of the United States too, right? So we could even go back and target the United Kingdom and Canada and kind of rerun this campaign. But my point is, when you do things the right way, you really don't need to send that many cold emails, right? I would still recommend going for volume, obviously, but there's little strategies like this that you can do on the side on top of your main campaigns, and that's really what we did for Cannon and helped really progress, the growth inside of his agency. So, just a little side note there, but we'll head over back to Apollo. So you can see our lead list is pretty much ready to go. And what you would want to do is kind of scroll through this really quick, maybe look at some of these companies and just click on their websites. Make sure that they're really the type of companies that you're trying to work with. So as you can see, it's very accurate because we took the time to do the research, type in the right keywords, type in the right industry. So you can see right here, Aero Renovation. The contact that we have is the marketing manager of that company. So this guy is going to be our inside of the company. And you can check out their website right here. Experts in exterior installations, experts in roof replacements, bathroom remodeling, looks like our ideal client. And then really the reason you kind of want to go through the list a little bit and make sure director of marketing, dream style remodeling, right? This list looks almost perfect, but you always want to just be safe and go through the list because sometimes a couple different types of businesses that might not be your ideal client might get mixed up, okay? So what I see happen often is like other home improvement agencies, they might accidentally get mixed up in this list since we're kind of playing around with that, marketing job title. So in the case that this happens, you want to look through your list, see if you can find a marketing agency or really just any other companies that might be easily mixed up. So for example, when we were doing this for gym owners, a lot of e-commerce, companies who sell gym equipment or, clothing online were getting mixed up in our list. So what we did is we looked at the profiles of those companies. We looked at the specific keywords that those companies had that, that the other ones didn't. And then we went to the keyword option. We clicked the down arrow. We went to company keywords and we went to exclude keywords, and then we typed in those keywords to get rid of the bad results. Okay, so that's all you have to do is really just go to exclude keywords and then basically exclude the keywords that the companies that are getting mixed up that you don't want to send emails to are using that the other ones don't. So hopefully that makes sense. Another small tip that I forgot to mention, if you go to advanced settings under industry and keywords filter, you want to make sure, go to advanced under the keywords, you want to make sure that you're selecting SEO description, okay? So by default, this will be turned off. And you see if I turn it off, we just lost about 400 leads, okay? So you want to add that back. And it really just means that those keywords are in the SEO description. Don't worry about what that means, but it's going to give you access to a little bit more leads that the average Apollo user might not be scraping because they don't turn that button on, okay? So you want to do that, and by the time you've kind of looked through this, made sure that it looks good and no marketing agencies or e-commerce brands are getting mixed up, unless, of course, you're trying to target e-commerce brands, which this strategy would also work really well in, in that niche. It's time to clean and verify our list, okay? So after this, your list will be completed and ready to export, and make sure to always clean and verify your lead list. So just because you're getting leads from Apollo doesn't mean that they're clean. Data, just a little fun fact is data churns at I believe an 8 to 9% monthly rate. People get fired, people switch jobs, people, just quit. And because of that, their old company email becomes inactive, okay? So that happens at a 10% rate to your leads. So if you have, if you have all these leads in this database that are sitting there for months, this data is getting more and more inaccurate, and if it's not updated. So that's why you always need to clean and verify your lead list, okay? So not only should you verify them, but you should also format the company names to remove anything that suggests that the email is automated and you scrape them from a massive list. So let me show you a perfect example of this. If we just look through, okay, so here's a perfect example. You'll notice that this company name here, it says all rich, INC period. And since the company name is in Apollo like this, and when I show you guys the cold email, we're actually going to be using the company name in the cold email. And, it would send it to the prospect like it would spell it out exactly like this. Ulrich, comma, INC, right? Which obviously doesn't look human. Like, what person in an email would actually put comma, INC, period when they're talking about the company name, right? So it just tells the prospect that we scrape them from some massive lead list, and it's totally automated. And a lot of people don't do this, and they lose out on a lot of potential meetings because they don't do this. So, when you export the lead list, you want to either use a software, hire a VA, or do it yourself, and manually remove all the LLCs, the INC, the commas, the dashes, etc. Okay, that's a big beginner mistake that a lot of people in cold email make. So just make sure that you're cleaning the company names and anything else that you might be using in the email. Okay, and after you've done that, and before we move on, just a little tip. When you go to verify your leads, you're going to lose about 40 to 50% of them due to being invalid, but there's a little method called validating the catch-alls. So stay with me for a minute. I know that might sound technical, but you can do this either using the Google Chips method or a software like Scrubby, which I've linked in this document. So Scrubby, it's by Nick Abraham. He's one of the big guys inside of the cold email space. He's built an amazing software here that can validate catch-alls. Or you can use the Google Chips method, which, I teach inside of this free little course/resource that I've made inside of Notion. It's called Appointment Booking Secrets. If you want that, you can get access to it in the description. And what validating the catch-alls does is, the 40 to 50% of emails that you lose, it's going to immediately give you back about 10 to 20% of those leads, and that they're going to be safe to email. And not only does this give you more leads, but the bigger point here is that you get access to leads that all the competitors are throwing out because they think that, they're losing them when they do regular verification. But if you go a step further and you do what's known as validating the catch-alls, you get back 10 to 20% of your leads, but more importantly, none of your competitors are doing that, so you get to contact people who don't normally receive cold emails. And as a result, you get more replies and you book meetings, okay? So a little trick there. If you want to learn how to do that, opt in to Appointment Booking Secrets, which, by the way, I'm about to totally redo that resource. Some of the stuff in there is kind of, grown a little bit outdated, so I'm completely working on making a completely updated and 10 times better version right now. So stay tuned for that. And then also, there's another video in there on a method for exporting leads from Apollo. The method shows you how to not only save 70 to 80% on market value price of leads, but also export them all unlimited and instantly, okay? And I can't talk about it on YouTube, but just know it's available if you opt in below, okay? Completely free little resource in Notion. Again, I'll be updating it. So, if you opt in today, you'll also get an email of when the updated version drops, okay? So without wasting any more of your time, let's get into the part that you've all been waiting for, which is step 2 of this process, and that is writing the cold email. So at this point, you're going to have a targeted and clean list of marketing decision makers in your niche, whether that be home improvement, SaaS, e-com, med spas, gyms, etc. Okay, so drum roll. Here's the exact email that we wrote for Canon. Okay, so I'm just going to read it off very quickly. So it's right here in the blue, and this document will be available below. Hey, first name, I noticed you play a major role in company names marketing efforts. I imagine you're always looking for ways to maximize the budget. We have a way to bring you offer over the next time frame. And then there's 2 call to actions that we use. The first one is mind if I send some more info? And then the second one is any interest in connecting on a quick 15-minute call to learn more. So to kind of break this email down, and it's relevant, it's short, it's straight to the point, and it just works, okay? I see a lot of people trying to complicate cold email. They try to do all these weird copywriting tricks like they're writing direct response, but at the end of the day, these super casual, simple, and short, straight to the point emails, these are what's gonna really get you results and book you the most meetings and help you stand out from all the people who think that they're writing a direct response ad campaign, okay? So the first line of the cold email, this is called the intro. We're basically, we're remaining relevant. We're using a personalized variable and we're relating to them, right? We're saying, I noticed you play a major role in company name. So we're using the company name there. And that's why it's important that you clean it up so that it looks normal in this line. marketing efforts, right? So right there, that's a little bit of a personalized line, and it makes it seem like the email was written just for them, okay? So you don't need to pay all this money for a first line writer to make personalized first lines. You just need to really ask yourself, how can I personalize this email and make it relevant at scale, okay? And that's essentially what we're doing. And then we put a dash and we're saying, I imagine you're always looking for ways to maximize the budget. And essentially all we're doing with this line is bringing out a pain point, right? And guess what? I'm using ChatGPT to do this as well. So you'll notice like a lot of people use ChatGPT like a buzzword. I genuinely use ChatGPT for these very small use cases. It's nothing crazy, but it genuinely saves you a lot of time and really helps you out when it comes to writing cold emails, scraping lead lists. So this is how I would recommend utilizing ChatGPT instead of, doing all this stupid stuff that could be accomplished easier, okay? So side tangent, but the ChatGPT prompt that I used to find this pain point was, and I did it in the same, ChatGPT works as a chain, so you can refer to previous data that you fed it, assuming you're still in the same chat. So earlier we asked it for the job titles, and then we asked it, what are some related pain points that these job titles are facing at these home improvement companies, okay? And you can see it gave us about, over almost 20, exactly 20 different pain points, okay? And we could have used any of these pain points, okay? So ROI measurement, competitive landscape, lead generation, seasonality, right? We could have chosen seasonality. We could have said, I imagine things for your, in terms of job, like, I can't think of it on the spot, but we'd probably say something like, I imagine that, your work has been slowing down due to it being winter, right? We could say something like that. And really the point of this line is just to bring up a relevant pain point, okay? So the one that I chose for the campaign that did really well was, I imagine you're always looking for ways to maximize the budget. And what I'm talking about is the marketing budget. So you can see right here, pain point number 5 is budget constraints, okay? Because they're always trying to figure out how to take the company's marketing budget and ultimately get the highest ROI on that budget, okay? So immediately the intro, it's personalized, it's relevant. When they see this in their inbox, they're gonna wanna open it. It seems like it was written directly for them, right? I noticed you play a major role in company names marketing efforts. We're calling out to one of their pain points. And then the second line is the body, and we're saying, we have a way to bring you, and then whatever main metric you're bringing them, that could be appointments, that could be leads, that could be more revenue, that could be gym members, that could be SaaS users, that could be patients, that could be commission, whatever main metric your offer increases, you want to put there, and then over the next time frame, okay? And the reason I'm not putting Canon's exact offer is because he's our client. He has a pretty unique offer, and just out of respect for him, I don't want to put that all over the internet and have people copying it exactly. But if you come and work with us, maybe I will show you his exact offer, who knows? But basically, so an example of this filled in would be, we have a way to bring your gym 30 new members over the next 37 days, right? Or, we have a way to bring you X many appointments over the next 30 days, right? Or we have a way to bring you, 3 listings over the next 45 days, right? So that's kind of what it looks like filled in, okay? And then call to action. You can use either of these, or you can just create a split test and use both of them. But the first one is just, mind if I send some more info? Super low risk, easy for the marketing decision maker to reply back with a quick yes. Also, any interest in connecting on a quick 15-minute call to learn more. So we're not saying, any interest in connecting on a Zoom call, any interest in connecting on a 20, 30-minute call. We're making it low risk for the prospect, right? It's not risky for, these marketing directors are very busy, right? So if we're pitching them on getting on some massively long Zoom call, even if we really are trying to get them on Zoom, we don't want to frame it as that, okay? We want to frame it as just 15 minutes of their time on the phone, because it's going to be easier to get a response out of them. And once you get a response out of them and they've committed kind of to your world, it's a lot easier to convert them, okay? So guys, this is it. This is the email right here. And what I would recommend doing is, when you're writing yours, is changing it up a little bit, okay? And I'm sure you could probably take this exactly how it is and start getting results, but it's just a really bad habit, okay? You want to kind of get in the mindset of, taking these quote unquote templates and making them your own, and maybe even coming up with some new strategies to test yourself, okay? And that's ultimately what's going to help you progress significantly faster than if you're just copying and pasting. But, as much as I hate copy and pasting, if I'm being honest, you can get pretty far doing it, okay? But I would recommend just taking this and kind of switching it up a little bit, okay? So off the top of my head, a way that we could change this is we could get rid of the "I noticed you play a major role in company names marketing efforts," and we could say as a job title, right? So as a marketing director, and then we'll put a comma, right? So we could do, as a marketing director, I imagine you're always looking for ways to maximize the budget. Or we could use a different pain point, right? So pain point number 3, generating high quality leads, right? So we could say, I imagine you're always looking for ways to generate more appointments with homeowners looking to remodel, right? So boom, right there. That's another way that you can change it, right? And we could even change the body a little bit. So we could say, we have a way to, the body's pretty good. I would probably leave it. But, you see how I just very quickly changed the intro to where now it's my own and I didn't just copy the template, right? So as a marketing director, I imagine you're always looking for ways to generate more appointments with homeowners looking to remodel, right? Or as the marketing director of a home improvement company, or you could say or if we wanted to use another personalized variable, we could do as the marketing director at company name, right? So as the marketing director at Bathroom Busters, I imagine you're always looking for ways to generate more appointments with homeowners looking to remodel their bathroom, right? So see how I kind of just changed that around, and now it looks completely different, but we're still using we're using the same core idea, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. I'll go ahead and just change it back to what it was for those of you who are going to be using the doc. But again, guys, this is it, right? Writing cold emails doesn't have to be hard. It's relevant, it's short, it's simple, it's straight to the point, and it just works, okay? Like, that exact email right here was responsible for this. It was responsible for a $4,000 deal, multiple meetings with 7 and 8 figure companies. And guys, look at how simple this is, okay? Cold email doesn't have to be hard. I see a lot of people overcomplicate it. The truth is, it's really simple, okay? So in order for this cold email to work as intended, you also need to create a solid follow-up sequence of an additional 3 to 4 emails, okay? So I personally like sending every prospect 5 emails. Actually, one of the deals that closed from our campaign came from the 5th follow-up. So I like always sending every prospect 5 follow-ups. But I could make a whole nother video on just follow-up sequences alone. And we still have a little bit more things to cover related to this strategy. But just know that you still have to put some time and effort into writing a good follow-up sequence that's congruent to the first cold email, it's relevant, etc. Okay? And also, you want to remember to follow the best practices when it comes to handling these replies, okay? Again, inbox management, I could make a whole nother video on this, like a 3 to 4 hour video on it, but I'm not going to leave you empty-handed. So here's a couple ways to handle responses, okay? So let's say that you take this template, you turn it into your own, you start sending it out to a cold email campaign, and now you're starting to get replies, okay? But how do we turn these replies into meetings on the calendar? What do we do when someone asks us about price? What do we do when someone asks us for more information? What do we do when someone says yes to a meeting, right? So I'm going to show you that right now. So if they agree to a meeting, just a way that you can respond to them is, "Hey John, sounds great. How's tomorrow at 2 p.m. PST or Wednesday at 3 p.m. PST? Also, feel free to book a time with me here as well. Include your Calendly link. Looking forward to speaking with you," okay? So instead of doing what a lot of people do, which is just giving a Calendly link and responding with something that's super non-professional or just way overly professional, we're kind of meeting in the middle. It's pretty casual. So we're basically saying, "Hey John, sounds great." So we're acknowledging them, right? We're saying sounds great. They probably just replied to our email saying, "Yes, let's get on a call." So we're acknowledging what they said. "Hey John, sounds great," right? We're trying to be human and not just copy and paste these templates like we're a robot, okay? And then we're giving them 2 times we're giving them 2 days and times, making sure to include the time zone, okay? This is something that's very small, but one of the big principles with inbox management is making it as easy as possible for the prospect to agree to a call. So, if you can, you should even look at where that prospect is located and just include their time zone when you're replying to them, okay? We don't even want them to have to do the math of the time zone difference when they're thinking about when they can meet with us, because that's just one extra step that doesn't need to be there, okay? So we're giving them 2 days, 2 times, but just in case neither of those times work for them, but if they do, all they have to do is say, yes, Wednesday at 3 p.m. works, great, we can send them an invite, right? That was simple. But just in case that none of those 2 days and times work for them, we're also going to leave our Calendly link, okay? Because that way, instead of them having to respond back to us, go back and forth over email, they can just use that link right then and there. Because, there's times when, and I'm sure you've experienced it if you send lots of cold emails, where, someone will reply saying, yes, like, let's get on a call. But then what ends up happening is, you send them a response, they don't book a call, and you never hear back from them, okay? And, what will happen sometimes is you'll say, like, hey, John, sounds great. You'll give him 2 times, but then none of those times work for him. And John is just the type of person who doesn't want to go back and forth all day over an email thread trying to find a time that works, right? So we still do want to include a Calendly link just in case none of those 2 times work. So it's really easy for them, while it's on their mind, to just use the link and book a call. But what we don't want to do is only send them a Calendly link, because then we're also going to lose meetings to people who don't want to go use the link, and they would have just wanted to agree to a time by saying yes, okay? So that's really how I kind of, would handle it if someone asks for a meeting, and then we're saying, looking forward to speaking with you, okay? That's it right there. Essentially, the core concept is acknowledge them, sound human, give multiple days and times with the time zone, also send them a Calendly link just in case none of those times work, and then say that you're looking forward to speaking with them. You don't have to, but I like to do it. And then again, this isn't the only way that you can respond to someone. I have personally 5 different responses that I've used that all work, but this one's the simplest, and I would use it in this situation. Okay, if they ask about price, right? This one right here, a lot of people, I know so many people, they lose out on so many meetings because people ask them about price over cold email, and they give them a price, or they just don't know how to handle it. Okay, so first things first, you never want to give a prospect your price over cold email. And the reason for this is because them not knowing your price gives you leverage, right? The less they know about your service, the price, the details, the delivery, etc., the more likely they are to want to book a call to figure those things out, okay? So you want to keep that leverage on them, but also we don't want to give them the price until they know the full value of our service, right? Because if they learn the price before knowing the full value, they're probably just going to think that it's too much, okay? And if someone is really consistent about wanting to get the price over email, you can give them a range, but what you want to be doing in an email thread when someone keeps asking you for the price is just at the end of every response, going in for that meeting, right? Now, obviously, you don't want to do this in a robotic way, but if they're like, hey, yeah, I'm interested, what's the price? You can respond to them using this, but then if they're like, look, I just really want to know the price, you can give them a range and then be like, I can give you the exact specific price, on our quick call. How are these times, right? So you just want to keep pushing for that call no matter what, okay? So here's the actual response. Hey, John, pricing varies, but we typically work on a performance basis. Can't give a specific number since it depends on what you need. We can speak for 10 to 15 minutes about this briefly if you wouldn't be opposed to it. If you're open to it, I'll send over some times. No worries if not, okay? And if you don't work on a performance basis, you can put, but we typically work on a retainer, etc., okay? Or we typically work on a monthly basis, etc., okay? And if you have a guarantee, you can technically say performance basis because, if you don't get them results, they do get their money back. So you can say that just to kind of grab their attention a little bit more. And then you'll say, can't give a specific number since it depends on what you need. We can speak about it for 10 to 15 minutes briefly if you wouldn't be opposed to it. So again, low risk for the prospect, only 10 to 15 minutes of their time. If you're open to it, I'll send over some times. No worries if not, okay? And a lot of the times the prospect will reply saying, yes, I'm free on this day, or yes, please send over a calendar link, or yes, please send over some times, okay? And there's a lot of ways that you can respond to the price question. There's definitely some more corporate ways you can handle it. There's definitely other ways you can handle it where you just give them a time and a calendar link then. That can also work really well. I've personally seen this one absolutely rip it. I got it from someone named Cold Email Chris on Twitter, so shout out to him. But I saw this, I kind of started using it and I just found it to work really well, okay? So I would recommend using this one right here if they ask you about price, if they ask you for more information, okay? So we want to say, hey, John, no problem. So essentially, and then you want to give a brief explanation of your offer. And obviously, you want to kind of position it as a unique mechanism. You don't want to give them too much information. It needs to be very brief. And you obviously want to use persuasive copy to, just really make it, more of a persuasive offer, right? And then after you kind of briefly explain it, if you'd be interested in discussing further, I have availability. And then we want to give them, a day, a time, a day and a time, kind of like we did in the first email, okay? And then alternatively, if it's easier, feel free to grab a time with me here, include our calendar link. Just let me know what works best for you, okay? So in this situation, the prospects replied to our email. They said, yes, please send me more information. So we're saying, hey, John, no problem, acknowledging them. So essentially giving them a very brief explanation of our offer because we're following through with what they asked, but we're also proposing 2 different times to speak, including the day and the time zone. And then also, again, including our calendar link just in case none of those times work so they don't have to go back and forth with us over email telling us that time doesn't work. And those are really the 3 main responses you're going to get. Obviously, there's other ones, but, I could do a whole nother video on inbox management, and I probably will. So, comment down below if you want that. But, I didn't want to leave you empty-handed because I know the superstars are going to watch this video and they're going to have this campaign up and running by tonight or tomorrow, okay? And step number 3 is it's time to close high-ticket deals. So, we've scraped the lead list, you've uploaded in instantly, you wrote your cold email, you wrote your follow-up, your templated replies, you wrote them, they're all ready to go. And now it's time to start booking some calls and closing high-ticket deals, okay? So you have to understand these companies are doing millions of dollars in annual revenue. You don't want to be pitching them a really small deal, okay? And it's almost to the point where if you pitch them a really small deal, they're almost going to look at you as like a lower quality service provider and you're not going to close them, okay? So just know that. And then also, something to kind of keep in mind is that from my experience with dealing with these bigger companies is they really do not care about your guarantee. Like it's almost to the point where a guarantee turns them off, right? So one of our other clients, Ishmael, we booked him this deal that he ended up closing for like 3 or 4K per month with a real estate broker. In the email that he replied to Ishmael's cold email, he literally said, look, man, I don't care about your guarantee. To me, that suggests that there's a possibility of it not happening. It also looks really markety. I just want you to be able to get me results, okay? So the market's kind of starting to understand that you probably shouldn't guarantee an arm and a leg. If you've read Alex Hormozi, a lot of people misinterpreted it, thinking that a guarantee is an offer. But the book clearly states that a guarantee is a way to enhance your offer, right? And a really good offer does not need to have a guarantee. So just keep that in mind. If you're really pushing towards a guarantee for these bigger companies, it has the potential to potentially turn them off a little bit. Just something to keep in mind, okay? Now, this video isn't intended to be a sales training. Again, I could go super deep into that. I give all of our clients who we run their cold email campaigns and give them 2 virtual assistants. They start booking a ton of calls, so we literally give them like 6 hours of sales training, help them recreate their pitch, review their sales calls, etc. So I could talk about sales for hours, but that's not what this video is intended to be. So I'm just going to give a couple pointers for kind of closing these higher ticket deals, okay? So I'm a huge fan of one call closes. Like I really love them. I'm one of those people who prefers them, whenever it's viable. But there are certain situations and certain markets where a 2-call close actually makes more sense, and this is one of them, okay? So a good rule of thumb, if you're deciding if you want to do a 1 call close or a 2 call close, look at your prospect sales cycle. And if they have a longer sales cycle, it's going to make more sense for you to have a longer sales cycle and do a 2 call close. If they have a shorter sales cycle, it's going to make sense for you to do probably a 1 call close, right? Like if you're selling to, a coach who sells a massive one-time program that they pitch on 1 call, it's going to make more sense for you to do 1 call, right? But if you're dealing with these massive corporate companies who have longer sales cycles and they have to check in with the finance department, the higher ups, you're probably going to want to do a 2 call close, okay? In this case, these massive companies who are reaching out to the marketing directors they use longer sales cycles, okay? So, even if the marketing director was 100% certain they wanted to move forward with your service, they'd still have to go to the finance department, they'd still have to talk to the higher ups, etc. Okay, so it's going to make more sense for you to structure these deals as a 2 call close if you want to maximize your upside and ultimately maximize the chances of closing the deal. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. If you've been doing 1 call closes, if you're reaching out to these bigger companies, depending on your niche, you want to structure these deals as a 2 call close to maximize your upsides. Okay, also, sales assets will become extremely important in the time period between the 1st call and the 2nd call, okay? So one of the deals that Cannon closed, he sent them a sales asset in between call 1 and call 2. Now, if you want to make very visually appealing sales assets, which I would recommend doing because a lot of people are visual learners and they're going to be much more receptive to it instead of like a Google Doc, which Google Doc sales assets still do fine, I would just be leveraging Gamma, okay? So it's a great tool where you can make these very powerful presentations / documents, and this is exactly what Cannon used to make one of his sales assets that helped him close one of these massive deals, okay? And the way you would kind of do this is when you're wrapping up that 1st call, you might be like, so John, will you make sure to let me know if anything comes up, short from getting hit by the bus, and just in case you have to reschedule, will you please give me a heads up? Okay, cool. Oh yeah, and by the way, I have this quick 10-15 minute little piece of homework for you to go through. It's this little quick document. You can maybe even share it with your other team members. It just kind of describes some of the stuff we went over today and also a little bit more about our process and some of the other companies that we've helped. If I send that over, do you promise me you'll check it out? Okay, great. So cool. Just sent you the invite for etc. Right? So you want to kind of leave them off that call with a sales asset, describing your process, showing some case studies. Don't give too much away, but that's what Cannon did. And why it's a good idea for these bigger deals is that, they're oftentimes going to have to communicate with other people in the company to kind of accelerate the deal from closing. Not always, right? But if you give them a sales asset, it's really going to help them go to the other people in the company and show them it. And then obviously you can design that sales asset instead of relying on that job title to go and kind of sell your service to the other people inside of the company, okay? And also, they just genuinely warm up the prospect in between the 1st and 2nd call, okay? So small point. And then also, I'm extremely against selling with Google Slides. I think as soon as a prospect sees you pulling up a Google Slide, it creates resistance. They're kind of thinking in their head, oh God, here we go again. And they're just ready to be bored out of their minds. But what I would do instead for this deal is, the thing is, these bigger companies are going to be more familiar with kind of dealing with presentations when it comes to deals or working with service providers. But like I mentioned, Google Docs, they just create a lot of resistance. It triggers kind of this feeling in the prospect's mind as soon as they see you pulling up a Google Doc. Might remind them of bad experiences. It can bore them. So what I would do instead is, if you really want to use a presentation, is you can just use an empty Google Doc. Literally name the Google Doc after the person's name you're talking to, - the company name, and you can kind of use it to start listing out the 3 to 5 steps or pillars of your pitch. And then under each step, you can kind of just, as you're giving the pitch, write out bullet points of what that pitch would specifically look like for that prospect and for their business, okay? And then it's kind of this more engaging pitch, but more importantly, you're still following kind of the presentation format because that's what these bigger companies are familiar with, but you're avoiding you pulling out Google Slides, which just creates a lot of resistance. So when you pull up Google Docs, they're like, oh, this is something different, and it kind of gets them a little bit interested. But as soon as they see Google Slides, for most prospects, it's going to instantly create a lot of resistance, okay? And another thing that's important to remember is to tie down during your pitch. So most people will give a very long pitch, either in a Google document or in a Google Slide, or just, just themselves. But what they do is they never engage with the prospect, and then they wonder why the prospect tells them they need to think about it. And what ends up happening is when you just go on this massive rant of your pitch, maybe it's also this massive Google slideshow, is the prospect, during the beginning of it, they have a question, but they don't get the chance to ask it. Then they have another question and another question and another question, and they don't have the chance to ask all these questions because you're just going on this massive Google slide presentation, and then the presentation ends and they have all these questions on their mind. They can't even remember some of them. They're just so overwhelmed and they can't remember their question. So they're like, oh, I just need to think about it, right? And then they don't end up buying. So you want to make sure, no matter how you deliver your pitch, that you're giving you're giving constant tie downs during the pitch, okay? So for example, when you finish explaining, and you want to do this after you finish explaining each of the main sections, okay? So if you give your pitch using pillars or steps, say that you finish explaining pillar 1 in the Google document and everything that would look like for that company, you're going to say, so does that make sense? And then they're like, yeah. You're like, awesome. So any other questions? Are you ready to move on to the next one? Right? So after each main point, we want to ask them if it made sense. We want to ask them if you have any other questions before we move on to the next one, so that if they do, we can clarify those questions, diffuse them if it's an uncertainty-based question or objection, and then we're eliminating them as we go on. So then when you get to the end of the pitch, the prospect doesn't have all these questions piled up in their mind and they end up being overwhelmed, and then they say they need to think about it, okay? And doing this after each main pillar or step of your pitch, again, it gives them a chance to ask these questions. And if they do ask a very specific question, a good practice to do is say, yeah, so, I can totally answer that in a second, but I'm just curious. Are you asking that for any specific reason? And when you ask them that, then you can really understand why they're asking that question, because it might kind of be a trick question. Like I see a lot of salespeople, they lose out on a deal because they just answer the prospect's question in as much detail as possible, and they think they're giving them the answer that they want to hear. But what ends up happening is they're just confirming that one of that prospect's fears, and then they're like, oh yeah, I actually don't want to do this because XYZ, okay? So it's a good practice to always figure out why a prospect is asking a question. Now, obviously, after every question they ask, you don't want to be like, yeah, we can get to that. I'm just curious. Like, why are you asking that? You can also be like, yeah, for sure. Like, I'm happy to answer that. Did you happen to have a bad experience with X in the past? Is that why you're asking that, right? So there's different ways we can kind of figure out why they're asking it. And then this gives us the insight we need to better diffuse and clarify that question, okay? So guys, that's it for the strategy. Hopefully you got value out of this. I'm really looking forward to, you guys who go and try it out in different markets. I'm curious to see, what you're able to achieve. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe.